Segment 1. The Iron Curtain descends. The ashes of World War II had barely cooled when a new shadow fell across the globe. In 1946, Winston Churchill declared that an Iron Curtain had descended across Europe, dividing the continent into two hostile camps. This was the dawn of the Cold War, a clash of ideologies between the democratic capitalist West, led by the United States, and the communist East, dominated by the Soviet Union. There would be no direct large-scale fighting between the two superpowers, but the conflict would be waged in the shadows. Segment 2. Alliances forged in fear to counter the perceived Soviet threat. The United States and its allies formed the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO. In 1940, NINA Pacto Mutual Defense. The Soviet Union responded by creating its own military alliance, the Warsaw Pact, cementing the division of Europe. The world was now officially a bipolar system, with nearly every nation feeling the pressure to choose a side. These alliances set the stage for decades of military buildup and political posturing. Segment 3. The Shadow War begins with direct military conflict, too dangerous to contemplate. The war moved into the shadows. The American Central Intelligence Agency and the Soviet Committee for State Security became the primary combatants. Their agents engaged in a deadly, clandestine game of intelligence gathering, counter-espionage, and covert operations across the globe. This was a war of secrets and deception, where a single piece of information could alter the balance of power. Segment 4. The race for ultimate power. The nuclear age had begun with Hiroshima, and now it escalated at a terrifying pace. When the Soviets successfully tested their own atomic bomb in 1949, it triggered a frantic arms race. Both superpowers poured immense resources into developing more powerful weapons, culminating in the creation of the hydrogen bomb. This terrifying new technology led to the doctrine of mutually assured destruction, or the chilling reality that a nuclear war would mean the end of civilization. Segment 5. The final frontier as a battlefield. The competition wasn't limited to Earth. In 1957, the world was stunned when the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite, initiating the space race. This technological duel became a powerful symbol of ideological superiority. The race to the moon was not just about exploration. It was a demonstration of a nation's scientific, economic, and strategic power on the ultimate high ground. Segment 6. A wall of concrete and ideology in the heart of Germany. The city of Berlin became a flashpoint to stop the flood of its citizens escaping to the democratic West. East Germany, backed by the Soviets, erected the Berlin Wall in 1961. This stark concrete barrier, lined with barbed wire and guard towers, became the most potent physical symbol of the Cold War's division and oppression. It was a prison wall, encasing West Berlin in a sea of communism. Segment 7. 13 days on the brink. In October 1962, the world held its breath. American spy planes discovered Soviet nuclear missile sites under construction in Cuba, just 90 miles from the US coast. This triggered the Cuban Missile Crisis, a tense 13-day standoff between President John F. Kennedy and Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev. For the first and only time, the world stood on the absolute brink of a full-scale nuclear war. Segment 8. The aftermath of crisis. The crisis was averted through back-channel negotiations and a nerve-wracking diplomatic compromise. While the world stepped back from the abyss, the event had a profound impact. It led to the establishment of the Moscow-Washington hotline to improve direct communication and marked the beginning of efforts to control the nuclear arms race. The terror of the Cuban Missile Crisis forced both sides to reconsider the true cost of their conflict. Segment 9. proxy wars and distant battlefields. To avoid direct conflict, the superpowers fought their wars through proxies in other nations. Conflicts in Korea, Vietnam, and Afghanistan became brutal battlegrounds, where American and Soviet ideologies, weapons, and strategies clashed. These wars cost millions of lives and destabilized entire regions, demonstrating how the Cold War's chill could fuel fiery conflicts far from Moscow and Washington. Segment 10. The era of 1970s saw a thawing of relations known as leaders like Richard Nixon and Leonid Brezhnev sought to ease tensions, signing landmark arms control treaties like the Strategic Arms Limitation Talks. For a time, it seemed that cooperation might replace confrontation. This period was marked by increased trade, cultural exchange, and a fragile sense of stability. Segment 11. The Empire Strikes Back. The period ended with the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979. In the 1980s, US President Ronald Reagan reignited the Cold War, labeling the Soviet Union an evil empire. He initiated a massive military buildup and the ambitious Strategic Defense Initiative, or Star Wars, aiming to create a space-based missile shield. This put immense economic and technological pressure on the struggling Soviet system. Segment 12. The Winds of Change. Within the Soviet Union, a new leader, Mikhail Gorbachev, recognized that the system was unsustainable. He introduced radical reforms. Glasnost, or openness, allowed for greater public discourse, and perestroika, or restructuring, aimed to revitalize the stagnant economy. These policies were intended to save the Soviet system, but instead, they unleashed forces that would lead to its unraveling. Segment 13. The wall comes tumbling down. The demand for freedom, empowered by Gorbachev's reforms, swept across Eastern Europe. On November 9, 1989, the unthinkable happened. The Berlin Wall, the ultimate symbol of the Cold War, was opened. Ecstatic crowds from both East and West swarmed the wall, chipping away at it with hammers and celebrating their newfound unity. It was a powerful, emotional, and definitive moment, signaling the end of an era. Segment 14. The end of a superpower, with its satellite states breaking away and its internal republics declaring independence. The Soviet Union ceased to exist. On Christmas Day 1991, Mikhail Gorbachev resigned, and the Soviet flag was lowered over the Kremlin for the last time. After 45 years of tension, ideological struggle, and fear, the Cold War was officially over. Segment 15. The legacy of a divided world. The end of the Cold War reshaped the world, leaving the United States as the sole superpower and ushering in a new era of globalization. Yet, its legacy endures in the nuclear arsenals that still exist, the unresolved regional conflicts it fueled, and the enduring tension in modern geopolitics. Understanding this epic struggle is essential to understanding the world we live in today.